Hello, you bread machine lovers, bakers, homemakers. Welcome to Butterfly Meadows Homestead, where hearts are warmed and bodies are nourished. Today, we are going to be making this beautiful loaf of potato bread in the bread machine. Today, we are going to be making potato bread. We're going to be using potato flakes, which will help our bread to be softer and stay soft longer. And first of all, let's go over the ingredients you're going to need to make this bread. I have here 3 cups of bread flour, and there is no standard weight for a cup of flour, but I weighed mine, and my 3 cups of flour weighs 520 grams. So you're going to need approximately 520 grams of bread flour or 3 cups. And I have 1 1/3 cup of milk, 1/3 of a cup of white sugar, 2 tablespoons of dry potato flakes, 3 tablespoons of oil, 2 1/4 teaspoons of active yeast, and 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt. And here in this cup, I have some extra water, and I'll explain why we need that as we begin to mix our bread. So what I always do first when I'm using the bread machine is that you want your paddle and your pan to be clean, and I take my paddle and I dip the side with the hole in it into my oil, and then put it on my stem and make sure it's easy to remove, because we're going to remove the paddle before the final rise, so we don't have the paddle hole in our bread. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pour in the milk and the salt and the yeast and the oil and the sugar and the potato flakes. And then on top of all that, we're going to add our flour. Now we're going to put our pan into the bread machine. This is the KBS bread machine, and you twist it to lock it. And we are going to go to menu option number 11, which is the raw dough cycle. So if you're using a different machine, just find the raw dough cycle on your machine. And we're going to mix this up before we start our bread cycle. Now, because I have the potato flakes in here, and not only that, but anytime you're making bread, you need to let your dough mix but for 5 or 10 minutes and see if it needs extra water. And I know that this one is probably going to need extra water because of the potato flakes. So we'll let that go for a few minutes and then we'll check it. Okay, it's only been a couple of minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of tablespoons of water. And you want to start out with a small amount of water, because when you get too much liquid, that is much harder to fix than not enough liquid. And so we're going to let this mix, and we'll come back and look at it here in a minute and see how it looks. Okay, it's been a couple of more minutes, and this dough ball is still way too dry. Hopefully you can see that. So I'm going to add 1 more tablespoon of water and then check it again in a couple of minutes. So our dough has been beating all together for about 10 minutes, and I just want to check it to see how dry it is. And it is just a little, oops, accidentally pulled the paddle out. Let's put that back. It's just a little on the dry side. Not very dry. Maybe not dry. So I'm actually not going to add any more water. So I'm going to let it mix for just a few more minutes, and then we will put it on our bake setting. Okay, so I'm going to hold the button to turn the cycle off. And we are ready now to set our bread on the bake cycle. It's always a good idea if you want a really good loaf of bread, to use your raw dough cycle to at least mix the dough for 10 or 15 minutes so that you know you have the right amount of liquid and that you can read your dough ball and make sure that you're going to end up with a good loaf of bread, because the feel of this dough ball, how wet, how dry it is after about 10 or 15 minutes of mixing, is going to determine the kind of bread, the quality of the bread you get in the end. So now I am going to go to menu option number 1, which is the white bread option. And this is a 2-pound loaf. So I'm choosing 2-pound loaf. And I am going to put it on a 15-minute, well, I think it's actually 14 minutes because the whole cycle's 3 hours and 16 minutes. And now it's 3 hours and 30 minutes. So I'm going to let it rest for 14 minutes and then it will begin the cycle. Our bread has finished baking. We are ready to take it out of the machine. Always be sure and turn your machine off because it has a keep warm cycle and it'll keep warming. So you'll want to check your bread and make sure it's loose in the pan. And this one is not quite ready to come out. So I'm going to sit it here in the pan, just cover it up and let it sit here for about 3 or 4 minutes and give it time to release from the pan. And then we'll take it out of the pan and set it on the cooling rack. So it's only been a few minutes and the bread, I can shake it and I know that it's loose in the pan and it is ready to come out. And it looks beautiful. So now we're just going to cover it up with a little cotton towel, let it cool, and then we'll slice into it and see what the inside looks like. We are ready to slice into this beautiful loaf of potato bread. Just look at this beautiful, soft texture. I hope you'll give this recipe a try, and I know you're going to love it. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you like videos like this, and share this video with your friends. God bless. Bye-bye.